Welcome. We're going to have interpretation in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. Everyone will join an interpretation channel, including English speakers. We're going to go over the interpretation instructions now. Okay, so for interpretation on a computer, click on the globe symbol in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select the option for the language that you speak. So if you speak English, please select the English option. You will need to go from the original audio to English. If you are on a smartphone, click the three dots in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select the option with the globe symbol. Select your language and then press Done in the top right corner.
Buenas noches, bienvenidos. La reunión de hoy va a estar interpretada a español, portugués y criollo haitiano. Para entrar al canal de español, tiene que hacer clic, si está en un computador, hacer clic en el símbolo del globo donde dice Interpretation, hacer clic en español y ya estará en el canal de español. Si está en un celular, abajo a la derecha hay tres puntos. Cuando hace clic allí, va a estar la opción de interpretación o interpretation. Luego escoge español, hace clic en Done y ya estará en el canal adecuado. Aquí pueden ver las instrucciones para el celular. Como dije, los tres puntos abajo a la derecha, luego hacer clic en Language Interpretation o interpretación, hacer clic en español y luego en Done.
Boa noite. Para interpretação dessa sessão de hoje, nós vamos ter a interpretação feita para espanhol, para haitiano e também para português. Se você estiver usando o computador, você vê no final da tela o símbolo do globo. É só você pressionar e você procura o idioma português e você seleciona e vai escutar a interpretação em português. Se você estiver no celular, você tem os três pontinhos no final da tela e você vai mudar o áudio original para português e você vai carregar Done. Daqui a uns segundos vai aparecer também toda essa informação aqui no seu ecrã. Como eu falei de novo, os três pontinhos no canto inferior, no lado direito da sua tela, você vai ver o seu símbolo de globo e vai escolher português e carrega Done e você vai conseguir escutar o áudio em português.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci un pile parce que vous là avec nous. Nous allons commencer par information, interprétation ça yo. Ou allons joindre accès pour faire tout ça me parle yo quand nous finit instruction interprétation yo. Si vous sur ordinateur, tant pis, cliquez sur le symbole globe là qui est en bas en droite dans le coin dans l'écran. Sélectionnez option pour langue ou parler qui donc capable de sélectionner créole haïtien pour créole, bien espagnol, etc. Les fini, ou va cliquer sur trois téléphones, trois petits boutons qui sont en bas dans l'écran téléphone, si vous sur un téléphone, et puis on va sélectionner option symbole globe là. Encore, vous pouvez aller sélectionner langue ou parler, et puis peser donne les ou fini. On va aller écrire D-O-N-E. En l'air, par droite, dans le coin, bâti doit tout. OK? Ça, c'est si vous sur un téléphone.
Hopefully everyone is into their interpretation channels once again. Even if you are listening to the presentation in English, please make sure that you join the English channel. We're going to start off with some introductions of folks that we have here helping out tonight. So first of all, Alana Gaffney, our Deputy Director, is here. And she's helping out answering questions in chat. I am Ben Weiner, Inclusionary Program Specialist. We also have Shannon Lawler, who is our Fair Housing and Inclusionary Specialist. And then Caitlin Plaharsik is our Intake Specialist. Thank you to Somerville's Office of Immigrant Affairs for making sure that we would have interpretation at this info session. And thank you to all of the amazing interpreters that are here to joining us tonight. So quickly, we will go over the different topics that we will be covering today. To start, we're just going to talk a little bit about the consolidated rental waitlist and what it is for those who are not familiar. We're going to talk about what has changed since the consolidated rental waitlist has been released last year. So how the program looked before and how it looks now. We'll talk about the steps to apply for the consolidated waitlist. And then we will do a quick demo application for anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to fill it out yet. Hopefully, this will be a good opportunity to see exactly what it looks like and hopefully how easy it is to complete. Next up, we'll talk about how the waitlist is created. We already have our waitlist, but also how new households are going to be added to the waitlist. We'll talk about next steps, what to expect after you've submitted your application, and when we start to invite households to units that are available, and also important dates, especially the deadline. And then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. You are welcome to put a question in the Q&A as well. Down at the bottom, there's you can click on the Q&A, you can ask a question, and that's probably the best way to make sure that one of our staff sees it and can get you an answer. So I highly recommend putting your questions there. If you think of something and you don't want to forget, you can put it in the Q&A before the presentation has finished as well. Just to make sure that everybody is hopefully, engaged, part of the call and paying attention, we're going to do a little participation before we get into things. So there is a raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and if you can just raise your hand for each of these questions, if they are true for you. So first of all, if you could raise your hand if you live in Somerville right now. All right, amazing. Okay, I'm going to lower hands, and then could you raise your hand as well if you have heard of the Inclusionary Housing Program? Okay, a few more people. Great. We've got some folks from outside of Somerville that know about the program. And then what I'd like to know is, have you applied for, we call this income restricted housing. Have you applied for an affordable housing program in the past? And it doesn't have to be ours. It can be, with the housing authority. It can be through any sort of local community agency. Okay, so we've got some hands as well. And then if you could raise your hand, if you have been frustrated, if you've had problems with those applications, maybe missing a deadline, maybe you didn't like the unit, maybe you thought you were applying for something that you were eligible for, you qualified for, and they said, sorry, you're actually not. You're applying for the wrong thing. So we've got some hands up. So we know that it's incredibly difficult to keep track of all of the different applications that are out there to make sure you're on top of applying ahead of deadlines and remembering even what waitlist you're on. And so a lot of what we were looking to do with the consolidated rental waitlist is to have people apply just one time to be on the waitlist for all of the units that come through our program. Hopefully, a lot of the issues that you may have had with keeping track of all those other applications, you're not going to have to worry about it with the consolidated waitlist. Anyway, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the program and how the waitlist has changed things. So, inclusionary units. So, for those who don't know very much about the inclusionary and the inclusionary zoning, the inclusionary program, um, the way that these units actually come to be, they are created thanks to our zoning ordinance, which is just the rules that any developer, that anyone building apartments in Somerville has to play by. Um, and in Somerville, most new construction with 4 or more units, residential units, is going to have some inclusionary units. So all of the units that are coming through our pipeline, almost all of them are brand new construction or they're renovation on a building that's adding some units. So what are these units like? Sometimes people have an idea about affordable housing, thinking that the units aren't necessarily going to be comfortable. They're not necessarily something that they're really hoping for. The inclusionary units need to be just like the other units at a property. So that's one of the things that we're really happy that we can offer. So this includes things like appliances. If there's in-unit laundry, it means there will be in-unit laundry in the affordable units, in the inclusionary units. Things like refrigerators, dishwashers. If there are new appliances in the building, the same thing. It's going to be new appliances for the inclusionary units. Also, things like some of the materials or finishes in the units. So things like the flooring, countertops, spaces at the property that you might be able to use. So maybe there's a rooftop deck, community room, or gym. These are pretty common things that we see at a lot of the new properties. You'll have access to those as well, and at no additional cost. And in addition, the units need to be the same size as the typical units that you across the whole building. So if the average 1 bedroom unit for the market rate units, if they're 600 square feet, that means the affordable units on average are going to be about 600 square feet as well. So we're making sure that that the affordable units aren't getting left behind. And then who can apply for the program? There are income limits, and there are 3 different tiers. So there's some confusing terminology here. We talk about the area median income. We talk about 50, 80, and 110% of it. But the important thing to know is these represent a maximum income for each tier. We have a few examples here. So each of these incomes that are listed down here at the bottom are for a household of 4. That's the maximum income that a household of 4 can have to be eligible for each income tier. So there's the 50%. The maximum income for a household of 4 is 82,700. The maximum income for an 80% household of 4 is 132,300. And then the maximum for 110% is as high as 181,940. All this is to say, we want just to show that the program is really for a very large group of applicants. Again, when we think about something that's affordable or income restricted, we often think that it's only if you're very low income. It can be something as low as 30% AMI, sort of at the poverty line. And the program does offer units for folks in a really large variety of tiers income. So a question we very often get is, how much is the rent? Rents, they're going to depend on the property and when the units were constructed. So we can't give you an exact number, but we can give you some examples. So here in the table that we're showing, we have some examples of rents that we have seen for units in the last year or so. One thing that I want to point out, it's at the bottom of the table, but these rents would be If these rents would be for a unit where the owner, the landlord, is paying all of the utilities. And the reason that's important is that when there are units that where you are responsible for paying utilities, so heat, electric, and water heat, things of that nature. If you're responsible, there's something called the utility allowance, and that is subtracted. It's taken away from the total rent. So when you're looking at these figures, let's say the minimum rent that we had seen for a 50% AMI one bedroom being $1,126, that's kind of like rent plus utilities. You can kind of think about it that way, and keep in mind that if you're looking at a unit where you are going to be paying for the utilities, that number is going to be lower. So it could be even $900, $950 could be the rent, because they take into account utilities. And then one other thing that we would like to share, and just ensure people understand, feel comfortable applying, is that there's no requirement for having a certain immigration status, for being a resident, um, anything like that, in order to apply for the program. For the rental program, there's really no reason that you can't apply, depending on however you're here. And there's no government funding that are used to develop these units. Again, the units are in market rate buildings. So there's no public charge, and there's nothing to be concerned about in terms of sort of federal funding that could be lost for these units. So what is changing? Why should you apply? If you were familiar with how the program worked before, there was a different application for every property for inclusionary units. And there was a separate lottery as well. So if you were interested in the program or interested in the unit, you would have to apply for every one. And you weren't, because you had applied, you weren't guaranteed to keep your spot on the wait list, right? You were going to be, you had to apply every single time, and it kind of felt like, losing out every time you applied and didn't get a unit when you needed one. So now, at the very least, you're applying one time. And the great thing is that if something changes, so let's say your household's income changes, or someone is even added to your household, maybe you need a different size unit, you need another bedroom, for example, if someone is going to be added to your household, you can go onto your application and you can update that. You can do that at any time. And then we can make sure that we start to invite you for now a 2-bedroom unit instead of a 1-bedroom unit, as an example. And then looking forward, the inclusionary program, currently we have 200 plus rental units that are in our pipeline, so that we are expecting to be built in the next 5 years, or maybe they're already at some stage of being built. Some may be completed later this year. And those will all be offered to households on the consolidated waitlist. And besides that, there are over 450 inclusionary rental units that were already built. The program has been around for something like 35 years now. Most of the units that have been built are within the last 10 or 15 years. And when the property managers at those buildings, when they go through the wait list from that first lottery that was held, then they'll reach out to us and we'll start to offer those units also to the consolidated wait list. And there's some flexibility here. So just because you're offered a unit doesn't mean you need to immediately accept it, but I'll talk a little bit about that, more about that later. So I want to cover Somerville preference, This, again, this is something that we changed to an extent. We changed somewhat with the consolidated waitlist. Somerville preference has always been part of the program, but we now have 3 preference tiers. So tier 1 preference, and this means that there's a group of people at the top of the waitlist that, where a big part of the waitlist is making sure that people that are in Somerville currently that have their kids in Somerville schools can remain in Somerville. So if you currently live here, including if you are, homeless in Somerville, so that could be staying at a shelter, for example, then you have that tier 1 preference, as well as if you have children in Somerville public schools or in a charter school that's located in Somerville. Our tier 2 preference is for households that either work at least 20 hours per week in Somerville, or have moved out of Somerville within the last 2 years and would like to come back. And then tier 3 preference, tier 3 just means that you don't have either of those Somerville preferences. It's for people that are applying from outside Somerville, and you're more than welcome to apply. And then there's a note here at the bottom as well. It says your household is considered to have a preference if at least one person in your household meets that. So what that means is, let's say you work in Somerville, but your partner or another adult in your household doesn't. They don't need to. As long as you work in Somerville, then you would have that tier 2 preference. Or if you live in Somerville and you are trying to move in with an immediate family member, with your parents, move in with a significant, with a spouse, someone you're married to, you want to move in together, then only one of you would need to live in Somerville to have that tier 1 Somerville preference. So how does priority work? So first, so actually, let me take a step back and explain what priorities are. So in addition to the preferences that we just talked about, the priority status is something that we added with the consolidated waitlist. And what priorities are is they are basically an emergency need. It's basically your current housing situation is not it's not reliable. It's you may be living in conditions that are unhealthy, and you kind of really need you have an urgent need to move to a housing that is safe and secure. So the priority statuses, they're kind of within preference tiers. So we just talked about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 preference. And inside those tiers, there's going to be households that have priority. So in tier 1, the households that also have a priority status, sort of an emergency or urgent need for housing, are also higher up than those without one. Also worth noting that priorities don't add up. So just because one person has one priority, someone else has 2 priorities, it does not mean that the person with 2 priorities is ahead of the person with 1. Just having 1 priority status means that you do have that added urgency, that you are going to be higher up on the wait list. And so what are these priority statuses? So if you're currently experiencing homelessness, this is one of them. That includes, again, if you're staying in a shelter, if you're couch surfing would be another example. I think we had an interpretation in another language in the English channel. We could just make sure that everyone's in there. That's okay. Thank you. All right. So the second priority status would be if someone in the household is experiencing domestic violence. And just so you know, we try to be very sensitive about this. We really encourage people to to reach out to us and let us know, how we can best communicate if when we're inviting someone to visit a unit. So if someone is experiencing domestic violence of any sort, then that's also a priority status. The third would be a unit that is unsafe because of its poor condition. So or it's potentially a hazard to your health. Um, uh, and this, in particular, this would be something where maybe the unit doesn't meet the building code, and to the point where services would say we can't have anyone living here. Number four is if you are in need of an accessible unit, so a unit with, for example, mobility features, mobility accessible features. If someone is in a wheelchair, if someone needs other mobility features in the bathroom, things like a roll-in shower, things like wider doorways. If you need to have an accessible kitchen appliances that you can reach, those would be examples, as well as those that have a need for a vision or hearing impaired accessibility features. That's also considered a priority. Number five would be if you have a mobile voucher. And I do want to clarify, this needs to be a mobile voucher, sometimes referred to as a housing choice voucher. So some examples of those would be MRVP, Section 8 vouchers, and a lot of the assistance from places like housing authorities, Metro Housing Boston, those are considered vouchers. It does not necessarily include something like a home base, which would be a different type of assistance. It's not a voucher, so just important to keep in mind. And then number six would be anyone at risk of losing housing. So this would be most typically someone, if your household received a notice to quit, an eviction notice, then you would also have a priority. We're kind of taking a sidetracking, taking a step in a different direction, just quickly to say we really recommend signing up for our email list. We only send information about housing, affordable housing opportunities. Almost always, you'll get information about our inclusionary program. So if you're interested in that, then please go ahead and make sure that you're on our email list. We also send out information about our homeownership program if you're interested in that. And you can use either of those options right there. The QR code will take you to that sign up. The link as well is to our webpage, and then you can find that green button to sign up for the email list. And always, if you go to our website, you can sign up there. So before we get into the demo, we just have a little bit more to talk about with the application. So to start, when you are getting ready to fill out your application, there are a few things you should keep in mind. So first of all, keep in mind who is going to be part of my household. You do need to make sure that everyone in your household is part of the application. For example, if you need a 3-bedroom unit, you'll need to have information for at least 3 people in your household, or at least 2 people if you have maybe a reasonable accommodation for an extra bedroom. But you need some information about everyone in your household, such as their income. If any adults in your household have income, you're going to need that information. So making sure you have everything together. So again, the income and assets, the income that we're looking for is annual income made by all the adults in your household. And you want to look at the income before taxes or other amounts are taken out. So often there are amounts taken out of a paycheck for benefits, for things like health insurance, or other benefits, maybe contributions to retirement. The income that we're looking at is before those deductions. So just keep that in mind, and it's for all the adults. And then assets as well, we will ask you to include those on your application. Currently, the asset limit is there's about $103,000. If you have that or more, you wouldn't be able to apply for the rental program. And that does not include accounts like retirement accounts, or education savings accounts. So keeping that in mind, we don't want to be nosy. We're just making sure that folks that are applying do need the program. And then lastly, you do not need to submit documentation for most of the questions on the application. The really important piece of documentation we do want you to submit is for those households that do need an accessible unit or have a reasonable accommodation due to a disability. We do ask, and when you complete your application, you will be asked to upload a document. And that can be a letter from a doctor or other healthcare provider, that just can, so we can just make sure, we can verify that you do need the accessible unit, that you do need whatever else you're requesting for that reasonable accommodation. So applications are available. They already opened on February 2nd. And then this is the most important link that we have in the presentation right there is somervillewaitlist.org. You can get to this from our website. You can take a picture right now. If you want to make sure you remember, that's where you will fill out your application. And currently our deadline is March 2nd. So I think something important to share and understand is that currently the waitlist is open for applications. Everyone that applies by that March 2nd date will be added immediately to the waitlist. The website is always live. So you actually can always go and fill out an application, but it's not immediately added to the waitlist. So again, so that in order for your application to be immediately added to the waitlist during this period that we have open right now, that's the deadline. The application will always be available in the languages listed there. English, Spanish, Portuguese, Nepali, Chinese, traditional and simplified, as well as Haitian Creole. I apologize that that's not listed there, but it is one of the options. If you need to, if you want to have your application translated, as you're filling it out, there will be a flag in the top corner, and we'll take a look at that. That's where you can select your language, so to help you as you're going through. And then, of course, we can always help with interpretation or translation into any language, not just those. If you need a language apart from one of those to translate your application or to speak with us on the phone, please let us know. Send us an email. Our contact information is going to be included here later on. We can put it in the chat as well. We can help with that. All right, so at this point, we are going to jump into a quick demo so you can see exactly how filling out the application works.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. All right, so this is the home page. So when you go to somervillewaitlist.org, this is where you will land. We did already create an account so that we could do this demo. If you do not have an account, there is a right below the login button. you'll see it says, don't have an account, sign up now. So that's where you will click. You'll be asked to enter your email and your first and last name when you do that. Really important, you'll need to have access to that email. You'll be sent a code, and you need that code to finish making your account. So keep that in mind. But we're all set here to go ahead and log in. And the first time that you log in, this should be what you see. So these are terms and conditions. This explains sort of the your understanding of the information you're providing, how it is used, how using the website. I think it's kind of typical when you're creating an account. And you can select the language right there so that you can read through these, and that when you get into your application on the next page, you will already be in that language, preferred language. All right, so I am going to ask Shannon to make up some information so that we can fill out this application. Right here on this first tab, you'll see your basic information, your first name, last name, your date of birth, your address. If you are currently homeless, you don't have a permanent address, you can check the box there below residential address as well. And then we made it convenient. So if your mailing address is the same as your residential, is where you live, then you can just click that box. We'll put in our phone number, and then we'll go on to the next page. A few questions here. We ask if you're currently in a unit in our inclusionary program, just for informational purposes. We ask if you're a full-time student or if you have been in this past 6 months. We should note that most of the time, if the head of household is a full-time student, you will not be able to apply for the program. The reason for this is that there are other housing options for people that are full-time students, such as dorms, on-campus housing. If there's more than one head of household, more than one maybe adult in the household, and one of them is not a full-time student and the other one is, then you can apply. And then we have the Somerville preference that we talked a little bit about before. You can select multiple things here. If you select either of the top two, it means you have Tier 1 Somerville preference. If you select that someone in your household is currently employed or was displaced from Somerville in the last 2 years, employed in Somerville or had to leave Somerville in the last 2 years, that would be Tier 2 preference. And then if you select the last one, the last option, it would be no preference. If you do something like we have up, like Shannon did, if you select option 1 and 3, the system will see that you have Tier 1 Somerville preference. So even though you selected for something for Tier 2, we know that since you currently live in Somerville, you do have that Tier 1 preference. And then our next section is the priority statuses, emergency housing needs that we talked about. You can select more than one of these. Again, selecting just one means that you have priority. And if you're confused about what they mean, there is a little question mark right next to the question. You can click on that and there will be something that pops up. It may be a little hard to see just because of the Zoom recording, but when you're doing this on your own, I promise, there's some information that comes up that explains what each of these options means. And then, of course, the last one, if you select it, would be for no priority. The next question is if someone in your household owns real estate or interest in property, so partial ownership of property, either right now or if you owned it within the last 3 years. Um, Generally, if someone owns property, they're also not eligible to apply for the program. There may be maybe some exemptions, some situations where that's not true, but please reach out to us if you have any questions about an exception. We ask if you check your email inbox at least once a week. This is important so we know if we can email you when we have updates or if you need a phone call. And then we have what language should we use to communicate with you? Please let us know as well. Again, we can translate into any language that you may need. And here there's a pop-up. It's saying that a file is required, an upload is required. The reason for that is that we do ask for Somerville preference documents if you have them available. It's not 100% necessary to do it right now. You can still submit your application and be part of the waitlist if you don't upload that document right now. But if you have the opportunity to go ahead and submit it, it's really helpful. Then right here, we're talking about reasonable accommodations due to a disability. And this is one of the most common responses here that we see folks select is that they need specific accessibility features. So we had talked about the mobility needs. We had talked about hearing or vision impairment needs. If you do need one of those kinds of accessible features, please make sure to select one of these options here. There's also, you can also request an additional bedroom. This would be typically if you it's for a medical need or a need related to a disability. So for example, if you have a live-in aid that helps you with certain everyday tasks, that would actually need a bedroom to reside in, to stay in while they're assisting you, that would be an example of need for an additional bedroom. And you can also let us know that if there's any other type of accessibility need that you do have, there's this yes other option right here. Very important to keep in mind, if you are selecting that you need a unit with accessibility features, you will only be offered units that have those accessibility features. So this is only meant to be for anyone that absolutely needs those. We will need verification as well. So if you think, something might be nice, but you don't actually need it, you might not have a letter from a medical provider, then I would recommend selecting no, that you don't need any of those. Our next question, again, is just for information. If you work with the city of Somerville so that we can make sure that there's full transparency. If you work for the city of Somerville, you don't have a better chance, you don't have a worse chance. You can participate in the program, but we need to make sure that everything is being done fairly. And that part of that begins with an answer to this question. Next, we have yearly gross income. We talked about the gross income. That means it is before the taxes are taken out, before other deductions are made. And this should be just the head of household's income. So that first person, the information, the name that we included on that first page, the person that signed up for the account at first, that's just the income for that person. And we'll be able to add more income later for other adults in the household. Next up, we have assets. We do ask you to share what assets you have. You don't need to give us the exact amounts in every account, but we would ask that you can include any of those, any assets from that list that you have. So examples would be bank accounts. If you have retirement accounts, we ask that you include them here, even though those are not considered part of towards the asset limit, as a reminder. And the asset limit is $103,000 approximately. It's a little bit above that. So what you can do is you can give us just a rough estimate. If your account goes between $1,500 and $2,500, you can put 2,000, because that would just be roughly about how much you might have in the account at any given time. If you need to add assets, you can do that as well. And then if you need to add additional household members, that's right below. That will be the next question. And when you select yes, you'll see that to start off, you'll have that basic information that you can provide for that household member. We'll just need to know their name. We'll need to know if they're a dependent, so maybe a child. We will ask if they're a full-time student, their date of birth, if they're in Somerville schools, and then we'll ask for their income and assets as well. Again, if this is someone that doesn't have any income or assets, you can just put 0. You can just select, I currently have no assets. And then we have this question here. This is just to make sure. So if your current assets, not including those retirement accounts, restricted accounts, are over $100,000, we do ask that you just select yes here. If not, you can select no. If you expect any changes to your income in the next 12 months, we also ask that you select yes here and let us know. This can be important for people that are maybe really close to the maximum for one income tier. This gives us some helpful information. So if you're coming up for an opportunity, we can reach out to you and say, hey, we noticed you think your income may be increasing. Can you please let us know if that's happening? To make sure that you're being offered the right unit. And so, yeah, an example of that could be something like an annual increase for cost of living. Some jobs offer this. It may be every year your income, your pay is increased by 3%, something like that. Maybe you have income that you only get a certain time of year, or seasonal. Or you may get bonuses or overtime, things like that. So it's just good if you can let us know. And then what unit type are you applying for? You can select more than one here. And if you're open to a unit, let's say to either a studio or a 1-bedroom unit, I really recommend selecting both. There's actually no, you don't lose out on your chances of getting a unit. A studio unit are exactly the same if you also select a 1-bedroom unit, right? So you kind of just get an additional chance at maybe getting to the top of the wait list faster if you select multiple units. But again, keep in mind what is going to work for your household. You certainly don't want to be asked about studio units if you have 3 people in your household and that's not going to work for you. Our last page here is just to submit. So if you're filling this out on your own, you'll click that top button, that top checkbox that says everything on the application is true as far as to the best of my knowledge. As far as I know, everything is accurate. And then the second checkbox, if you have any help, if you have maybe an advocate or caseworker that's helping you fill out the application, if there's just someone that is supporting you, you're welcome to click that box and add their email address as well. That way we can actually send them an email if you're invited to a unit. So you can make sure that person is also, getting notified. They can go ahead and help. They can respond. Make sure that you don't miss any notifications from us. And so we click submit, and that is the application. You are going to see that we're immediately taken to this page right here. It asks to upload a file. This is because we had noted that we had Somerville preference. Again, if you don't have something you can upload right now, it's okay. Your application is still complete and on the wait list. And then we have one other thing that we'd like to ask. Oh, and I would also say, taking a step back, if you did select that you have a need for a reasonable accommodation, So maybe for those accessibility features, this is the page where you would upload those. There's that blue button right there says upload reasonable accommodation documents. You can drag and drop them or click the browse button to go looking for them. And that's where you would upload that letter, something from a medical provider that shows that you do need whatever you're requesting. And the last thing we're going to do, you'll see we're going to our name over there, in this case, inclusionary housing, and then we're clicking the profile button. We just have a few more questions here. And these really, some of the information is to help us. Some of the information is to see if there are other supports that we can offer you. So, for example, we're asking about veteran status. If you are a veteran, you select yes. We may offer to send some resources in the future through our Office of Veteran Affairs. If you select as the second question that your household includes an artist, then we occasionally see artist live and work units that have space for, again, residing, living there, as well as for working in the same studio units. And that lets us know that you might be interested in those opportunities when they come available. We ask you to let us know how you heard about the program. We're asking also if you would like to be added to our email list. So we talked about it a little bit. I really highly recommend that people get on our list if you're not already. And you can also let us know if you would like us to do that for you here in the profile page. Then we have a couple of questions about parking and cars. This is just really helpful for us to understand for our program, what the needs generally of some of our applicants are. And then there are a couple more optional questions, which are ethnicity and race. You can answer these if you feel comfortable doing so, and we're not sharing it with anyone. We're not sharing your specific race or ethnicity, but it helps us understand people who's applying for our program, and making sure that we're doing our best to be a program that everyone can access. And so that's everything for completing that initial application. Once you're done with this, you'll be brought to this dashboard page. And when you log in to your account, this should be when you complete your application, this should then be the first thing that you see. So there's some basic information about your household. You can see the income and assets. You can see what size unit you applied for, and the income tier. There is a unique code there as well, which is just helpful. Every household has one of these. And so if you're ever reaching out to us and you have a question, if you give us your unique code, that makes it really easy to find the information that you for your application. So it's a good thing to note down somewhere. Below there, you can see my application status. When you are offered units, then the quickest way to log in and to see the information about that unit is to go there, the My Application Status button, and it will take you to a different page. Again, you'll get the information via email usually, unless you tell us that you don't check your email, and we'll call you. But in order to get to that information, the email will say this: you'll need to log in and then go there. And it's a really important part of our process to continue with screening you, with doing a certification for the unit. We need to make sure that households are eligible. And so when we invite you, it's really important that you do log in, you do click the button. And that's where you'll see some more information about the unit. And that's where you can let us know that you are interested or you're not interested and want to wait for the next unit that is available. And then lastly, There's the application section. If you ever need to go and update your information, then you want to click on that green button right there. And again, you can do this at any time. I want to say that as soon as you do this, as soon as you click the submit or the update information button on that fourth little tab right there. Actually, Shannon, can we go back in just momentarily? As soon as you make a change and click update my information, your information is in there. It has been changed. There may be times where it doesn't immediately show up on your dashboard. But as long as you click that update my information button, it means that the system it received that information. So just keep that in mind. Don't worry if it doesn't immediately change right away. And then there is an opt-out from waitlist button as well. If you find another unit, maybe you get into another program, or you're not interested in being in a unit from us right now, then you can just click that so that we don't bother you with emails. And again, if you end up changing your mind, if you do want to be added back to the wait list, you can do that. So even if you click that button, you can later let us know, send us an email and say, I'd like to be added again. I applied before. Can you add me back? And we can do that as well. All right, so that concludes our demo. Now we're going to jump back, and I know it's been a long presentation. Thank you so much for bearing with us. We don't have too much more to go through, and we will absolutely get to your questions as well. All right, so when the wait list is opened, well, it's open right now for applications. The application's online, and we're here to help. We set aside a full day next week that we're going to have all our team in the office. We ask that, if you need assistance and if you can make it next Wednesday, please come see us. We're also available by phone, by email, where we have virtual office hours. And then a lot of our local organizations, an example would be our Office of Housing Stability, which is actually part of the city, as well as other folks at places like Community Action Agency, Somerville Homeless Coalition. So if you've worked with someone at those agencies in the past, they can also support you with this application. And when a unit becomes available, we invite a group of households to see that unit or to visit it. Sometimes we have in-person visits, and sometimes we have walkthrough videos. The reason for that is if we're inviting maybe 10 people, it can be hard to get everybody in person to visit the unit. If you end up being eligible for the unit, if you move forward in the process, we always make sure you have the opportunity to go and see it in person before you sign a lease. So don't worry about us trying to get you into the unit without ever having seen it. And at this point, households can either let us know that they're interested or not. If they are not interested, you should let us know. You should again log in and click no. Or in case we're sending you an email to ask, email us back. But again, there should be instructions in that email that we send you. If you say no, you can stay on the wait list. There's no problem there. We like to know that you're responding, so we can be sure that you're still interested in another unit. But again, you're not required to take the first unit that is offered to you if it doesn't work. The next steps in the process, program eligibility screening. We often call this income certification, and that is done either by our staff or sometimes is done by some other partners that we work with, like Maloney Properties is one of the most common ones. Or sometimes the property management at a building. And when we get to this stage, it's right after we ask households to let us know that they're interested. We'll ask we'll ask the first household that's on the wait list to give us these things. So those include income documentation, things like pay stubs, or other verification. We ask for things called employment verifications, which sounds like a scary thing, but it's just really one page that your employer can fill out for you. We ask for asset documentation, so things like bank statements. We ask for a tax return. So we do ask to see your most recent tax return, which is only federal taxes. We don't need state taxes, but it should include W-2s. It should include all the pages. And then we ask for the documentation of that Somerville preference or priority, if you have them. And it's important to remember that when we do finish that income certification, there is usually an additional step, which is a rental screening. So if you don't know what that means, it often refers to checking credit, or checking your history of making rent payments on time. Those are performed by the property manager. They're not done by us directly. So we would put you in contact with the property manager, and they usually send you an application. And then there's often criminal background checks as well, for properties. And just an important reminder, we really ask that you never tell a landlord in the unit that you're in right now um, that you are leaving unless you already have an offer for a lease at one of these units in the inclusionary program. Um, we never want you to tell a landlord that you're not going to be there anymore. But then maybe there's one step in the process that doesn't go well. Maybe you finally go and see the unit and realize it's not going to work. So please make sure that you do have an offer for a lease before you give notice or tell your landlord that you're going to leave. And then going forward, please just keep in mind that you can and should update your information. There's some really important information that will change which units you are eligible for, such as who is in your household, what is your household's income, your contact information, and any changes to preference or priority. Those are really important pieces of information. And then reopening the waitlist. The waitlist will open again in the future. We're expecting that this may be the next time, maybe in a year or two from when we close on March 2nd. So again, if you want to be added right now, then before March 2nd is the time. We have a couple sort of frequently asked questions. So if you are on another waitlist in Somerville, do you need to apply to the consolidated rental waitlist? The answer is yes. So households that have applied to one of our lotteries in the past, before we started the consolidated waitlist, you're not automatically on this waitlist. You do need to submit one of these applications on somervillewaitlist.org to be on the consolidated waitlist. And then the waitlist is not for all affordable housing in Somerville. We want to make sure that folks know there are other waitlists, there are other housing opportunities. And so if you're on a waitlist for, let's say, something like public housing, just keep in mind, you don't check on that with us. And you're certainly not on our wait list if you've applied there. So keeping in mind, there are a lot of other organizations in Somerville that help you apply and search for affordable housing. Some of those are listed here, such as the Housing Authority. Again, our Office of Housing Stability is a really close partner of ours as well. and there are a few more in Somerville. And here's just our important dates. Once again, a reminder, applications are open right now. The last day for applications to be added to the wait list currently is March 2nd. And then application support. I did refer to this a little bit, but we're going to have a day next week. It's Wednesday, February 18th. We'll be there from approximately 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And our office is located at 50 Evergreen Ave. It's also known as City Hall Annex. If you pop in at any time from 9 to 4, there will be someone that can help you fill out your application. Also, if you have specific questions or if you'd like to have someone on like a video call while you're filling out your application, you're welcome to join our virtual office hours. We usually hold those every Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. You may not be able to see the link, excuse me, right now on these slides. All that information is on our website. Or if you have any questions and you're having a hard time finding it, again, we will put up our contact information, our email, and our phone extension so that you can reach us and find out how to join. All right. So now we just like to take the opportunity for some additional questions. If there is anyone that hasn't been able to include their question in the chat or in the Q&A, then this would be the time. If you are having trouble typing out your question, if you want to raise your hand, we can see about unmuting you as well. But yeah, we're going to be here for a little longer to make sure that we answer any questions.
Okay, we already have some questions in the Q&A, so Ben, maybe I'll read them out and you can answer them.
Great.
Okay, so the first question that we have is, how can we find out where we are in the queue?
Yeah, so right now, I will note that there's nothing displayed on the dashboard on that website that shows your current ranking. The reason for this is that the waitlist is open. So while people are being added, we can't display a ranking. Once everyone has applied and the rankings are final, then you'll be able to see something on your dashboard. But if you ever have any questions about that ranking, I would just suggest, you can email us. And we also have an FAQ on our website. It's actually on our consolidated rental waitlist page. It has some more information about what the rankings mean. And I will say one of the questions that we often get is, I'm number 500 on the wait list. Does this mean that there are 499 people ahead of me? And it doesn't. So, and the reason for that is that if you're number 500, but you're applying for a 2-bedroom unit and you're applying, your income is at that 50% range. The only people that would be called ahead of you for a 2-bedroom unit at 50% would be people that are applying for exactly that. So there are lots of people that have a higher number than you, but they're only applying for a 1-bedroom unit, right? It's just one person. Or maybe they're also applying at a higher income tier. They're applying at 80%. So that number doesn't mean that there are that many people ahead of you. Something to keep in mind. Okay, next question.
So next question, what happens if we're already on the wait list from last year? How do we find out what our updated position is?
So I think we kind of just covered that question. Again, Amy, if you would like us to double check for you, then please reach out. But again, they'll be displayed again once the application period has ended.
Okay, next question. Is it still true that you can only say no 3 times before going to the end of the list?
Yeah, so thank you so much. This is a great question. Um, so we still do have a strike system where if you okay, the way that it works, if we send you an invitation to go and visit a unit or to view a walkthrough of a unit, and you log in and you say, yes, I'm interested in that unit, and then you change your mind. You say, "Oh, never mind. Sorry, I'm not interested anymore." That's when you would get a strike. So, and especially if you're moving forward to the next stages, right? If you're in the middle of income certification and you say, "Oh, never mind. I'm actually going to do something else," then that's where it would be a strike. Um, it doesn't mean that just because you're offered a unit and you immediately say, "I don't think this is going to work," you get a strike. Um, and that's why it's really important that when we send you the information about a unit, you should look and you should, there are some unit details. So you should look at the walkthrough of the unit. If there is one, you should click on the unit details, which will take you to a page that has the rent. It has information about features of the unit and things that are available at the building. If it has an elevator, all sorts of things that you can see there. And that's really your first opportunity to see if the unit might work for you. And then if you do get those 3 strikes, then at that point you would be dropped to the bottom of the wait list.
Okay, so from the chat, at one point I heard an asset cutoff of $1,000 and at another point $100,000. Can you please clarify?
I apologize if I may have said $1,000. The income limit currently, and I don't have the exact figure, but it's very close, is about $103,000. Yeah, that is the asset limit. Only for unrestricted assets, so something that's not, again, like a retirement account. Um, those are counted towards that limit. And it does actually change every year. It changes slightly. It based on inflation, it actually will change and normally will increase by, maybe a few $1,000. So we could say we might expect to see it closer to $105,000 for next year.
Okay, another one from the Q&A. What if your income bracket changes while in a unit? Do you just get thrown out? What happens?
That's a great question as well. So you're not getting immediately thrown out of your unit. What the options will depend a little bit on what unit you're in. They'll depend on what property you're in. So our compliance team works very closely with the property managers, and they're not on this call right now, but they're the ones that make sure that people have options, that they can stay in their units, or that they can stay at the property that they're living in. So some examples of how that works. If your income changes, let's say it increases, and you used to be eligible for 50%. Now you're eligible at 80%. As long as there's one of those units, so what I mean by that is as long as there's an 80% unit that's just like yours at the building, you can actually start to pay the 80% rent and stay in your unit. And something, it works a little bit similarly if your income decreases. There could be a waiting period before you can start to pay a lower rent, but you're not going to be immediately kicked out. We do try to support, the property managers. They have a plan for trying to keep people in their units. Every situation is going to be a little bit different. If they don't have any of the units that you are newly eligible for, so if your income increased, but there's not one of those kinds of units on the property, you may not be able to just stay at that property. But we do also have an internal transfer list, which allows us to help people stay in the program as long as they're still eligible as well. So if anything were to happen, if you were in a unit and you're no longer eligible, or maybe you have too many people in your unit, maybe you have not enough people in your unit, or your income changes like you'd mentioned, then the best thing to do is to reach out to us, so that we can make sure that we try to solve that problem. We try to see what we can possibly do to keep you in your unit, to keep you at the same property, or to keep you in the program.
Okay, this question has already been responded to directly, but I do think that everyone might benefit from this. So, are all household members' incomes taken into consideration for eligibility?
So all household members over 18 your income is typically counted. So even, I mean, let's say someone's main source of income is Social Security, or disability, then we do still count that income. Um, One of the sort of exceptions would be if someone is a full-time student. At that point, and they're over 18, we wouldn't count their full income. The limit of annual income we would count for a full-time student would be $480. So it's pretty small amount. Um, but yes, if you do have an adult that has any form of income in the household, normally that will be counted.
Okay, we got a request to share this slide with the prices for the units. So I'm just going to go back to that. Okay. Yeah, so if you need to take a look at that, it should be up.
It looks like there are a couple more questions.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. This person is asking, you say you're affiliated with Maloney Properties. So as mentioned, our application will be sent not just to Somerville, but also to other properties as long as it's income restricted. Is this correct or not?
So I not exactly, but I think I see what you're saying. And let me sort of explain the way that we work with Maloney. Maloney is not it's not hired by the city, right? We're not paying them to help us. Excuse me. The work that Maloney does in Somerville, they're actually hired directly by the property manager or the owner, of a building. And there are inclusionary units in those buildings, and basically Maloney is helping to make sure those households are eligible to move into those units. So everyone that is applying for the waitlist, um, your information initially is just with us. It's with city staff. You're not immediately Your information is not immediately shared with Maloney Properties or anyone else outside of the city. Um, the times when we are sharing information with Maloney Properties is where they are helping do those certifications, where they're helping doing the screening at one of those properties. And they're also not going to be sharing your information with anyone. The only reason that they have it is so that they can make sure you're eligible for that specific unit.
I'm going to add another point of clarification here. We do work with Maloney, like Ben said, for these larger properties, but just because you apply to the Somerville waitlist, it is just for units in Somerville. It's not for all Maloney units. So you'll have to apply separately for other units that Maloney has. These are just for Somerville inclusionary units.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Sharon.
And then we got a question to explain the page that's currently being shown about rent. Maybe you can talk about utilities, when they're included, what rent looks like and what it doesn't.
Sure. So, and I apologize that I don't have, exact figures for the utilities in front of me right now, but I can talk about, an example. Maybe if we can look at, 80% area median income or 80% AMI, if we're looking at a two-bedroom unit, you'll see that the range that we have there is between 2,252 and 2,388. Those are examples of actual rents that we calculated in the last year or so. The way that utilities are important here is that those rents would be if you would be charged that rent for a unit where the landlord is actually paying for all of the utilities. So in other words, we're factoring in, we're including the possibility of where we're looking at your whole housing expenses being affordable. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's the rents are calculated so that you can not be paying too much for rent and utilities and fees for your housing. Now, if you have to pay some of the utilities, what will happen is that there's a utility allowance, is what it's called. And what it really means is it's a certain amount that is taken away. It's subtracted from the rent that the landlord can charge. So let's say you're paying for electricity, you're paying for heat, you're paying for all of your utilities, maybe except for water at the property. What we do in that situation is that we look and we say, okay, we expect on average that a household will pay for $150 for electricity every month in this two-bedroom unit. And we expect that someone will pay $150 more for heat every month in this unit. And then those amounts, they're taken away from the rent that the landlord can charge. So if you're paying electricity and heat, and the maximum that you can pay for everything combined is $2,252, we're taking away $300, and we're saying the rent shouldn't be more than $1,950. It has to be $300 less because this person moving into this unit is going to be paying for utilities. So hopefully that makes sense.
All right, next question from the chat. If a household's income increases such that they don't fall under any of the qualifying brackets, meaning they're over 110% AMI, how long is the transition period to move out, or are there any other options?
I'm sorry, Shannon, could you repeat? I think the question was if someone is over 120%?
Yes, so if they exceed the income limit after they've already been living in a unit, then how long is the transition period to move out?
Okay, so
Or are there other options?
yeah. I mean, first I'd like to clarify because some people on the call may not know that there's a recertification every year for inclusionary units. But something good to know is that you can actually make some additional income and stay in your unit, stay in your same tier once you've been in the unit already and are doing that recertification. So when you first move in, you have to make up to 50, 80, or 110. After that first year, you can actually make up to 140% of 50%, which it's kind of hard to think about, but basically it means that there's some additional space for people that are recertifying, that are in the unit, staying in the unit for an additional year. You can have some additional income before you go up to that next tier. And so what would happen if you went over income? I mean, we talked a little bit about the transfer list. We talked about our compliance team trying to keep you in your unit. And if you do go above sort of the top limit for inclusionary, it would be over 110% AMI. If you're already in the unit and you go over 120% AMI, at that point you would be over the program sort of maximum. There is still an option for you to remain in the unit and pay market rate rent at that point. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave. You may have to determine if that's affordable for you, but that's a conversation that at that point that you would want to have with the property manager.
Okay, the next question is going to come from Anthony. And Anthony, you should be able to go ahead and ask.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you so much. This is very, very good information. And I've been participating with Waitlist for a while and having this consolidated waitlist is really a life saver because it's much easier for us to be able to keep track, especially when they ask you, are you still interested? And you have to respond to one, you have to respond to the other separately. My question at the beginning was that during the demo for the application process that is open until March 2nd, I didn't hear or didn't see that we have the opportunity to print the application, to download the application, or get a reference number or an acknowledgement or an email coming back to our inbox letting us know that that application has been received in case you have any truncated communications or something like that. I understand that you can go back into the portal and see if you have something submitted. But I was just wondering, it gets sometimes frustrating when you go to a website and you fill up a lot of personal and private information, and sometimes you just get a thank you and you get no acknowledgement and you just sit there and wait. So I'm just wondering, is there something that comes back, a reference number or uh, something that we can have of the person providing the information? And by the way, to all the questions that have been asked and answered, a lot of them I had, and a lot of them I even didn't think of. So I appreciate all these questions that have been shared by the community. It's very good.
Yeah, well, thank you, Anthony. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. I actually, and I don't want to promise this, I think there may be a confirmation email that does go out to the email that you use to make your account once you've submitted that application. I believe that is the case. I don't want anyone to take it for fact.
Sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
There is a confirmation email that says that we've received your application and share some details on what happens next. So you will receive that confirmation email.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. And then the other thing that I would just note is as long as when you log in or even when you finish your application and you're looking at your dashboard, there's a unique ID there. There's that unique code, which is it's always going to be 6 numbers or letters. So it's going to be 3 numbers or letters and then a dash and then 3 more. That means that you have a unique ID. It means you have a unique code. It means that your application was received and you're in the system. So it may not be exactly your receipt number, but to us, that identifies you as being part of the wait list.
Okay. So that is, oh, sorry. Do you have any follow-up to that, Anthony?
No, just thank you so much. And I hope some of the cities and the Commonwealth are coming with something like this. It's very helpful for many of the other citizens. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Anthony.
everyone. Thank you for your questions. If you do have any other questions, we've run out of time for tonight, but please feel free to contact us. You can email us at inclusionary@somervillema.gov, or you can give us a call.
All right. Thank you so much. And also thank you to our amazing interpreters for being here this whole time and supporting us through this. We really appreciate you and your time. Thanks, everyone.